Hey yo, salute to all my subscribers and a special shout out to everybody else passing through. YouTube, what's good? Hey yo, I came across this article last night on The Root. I usually read a lot of their articles. I follow a lot of things, of which is hip hop culture. I thought something was interesting too. I wanted to run it past y'all. Curious about what y'all think about it because this shit don't happen too often, and I was curious to know. I'm sure that somebody will fact check to see, what potential other cases in which this happened, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't happen too often. So in this The Root article, we're talking about Tekashi 69, and recently, or I should say, there was a hearing, and so it's upcoming. There's going to be a decision, or not decision, but there's going to be Tekashi's going to be sentenced on um, having the 4 years of probation that he was put on. He was sentenced to 4 years of probation and 1,000 hours of community service. This was pertaining to the sex charge that he had a couple years back. And what's funny is so when you're on probation, right, and we all know this, any new charges, any interaction that you have with the police, if you're found to have committed a crime, misdemeanor or whatever, you can be violated on your probation. Typically, that's the way it works. Now, he's facing federal charges right now. He's been indicted on these federal charges that everybody has been following. And the trial has been scheduled for the fall, September, I don't know, 26th or something like that, of 2019. What's funny is everybody was saying, who was talking on it was saying, basically, even if he finds a way, even if Tekashi 69 finds a way to get out of these charges, because of the probation violation, he at the very least is going to have to do jail time to finish out that sentence. That's typically what happens when you are on probation or parole, and you get in trouble with the law. You have to go back and finish out your initial sentence that you were paroled or put on probation for. Usually it depends on exactly what the nature of the offense is, and usually they're a little more lenient with probation than parole, because parole is actually you still doing your sentence. They're just allowing you to do it from home, provided you don't have any contact with the police. Probation is typically slightly more lenient than parole is. And usually with probation, obviously, you don't have to wear like an ankle bracelet monitoring and shit like that. You just have to report into your probation officer. But neither here nor there. This man has federal charges that he's been indicted on. How many times do y'all think it's happened where they're on probation for an already serious crime, and then they're charged with more serious shit, and federal shit at that, federal charges, and then they're going to be sentenced to time served on their probation. So essentially, what they're saying is he's not going to be violated on his probation. They're going to sentence him to time served. He's only completed half of his probation. So I wonder, how is it that they were able to pull this off, right? Fuck having high paid lawyers, good lawyers. You're halfway through your probation. This should be an automatic violation of that probation. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is he's scheduled to be sentenced to time served, and his probation being ended as time served completed. And what I was reading in the article, they were saying that because because of the upcoming trial, and because of the fact that he's in jail now awaiting this trial to start on these charges, they're saying that he's not going to be able to be. I apologize for the phone ringing in the background. Um, he's not going to be able to continue to fulfill the obligations of his probation because he's being held in federal custody on these federal charges. Well, yeah, but that's never stopped him from violating anybody. You know how many people I seen back during my days of being young and dumb? You know how many people I seen back when I was in county jail? I've seen so many people who were in county jail who, as they were in jail on that case, waiting for their case to come up in court or what have you, literally get visited by either their probation officer or by their attorney and say, listen, you're being violated. Like, as you're sitting in county jail waiting for that case to come up in front of the judge, and they would be visited by whoever, letting them know that, your probation's being violated. And that's not another charge, but it's another thing that they would now have to wait for a separate court date for and have that resolved before they could even get out. So how come with this situation, I'm gonna say this, right? And I'm curious what y'all think. If this shit happens, if Tekashi69 ends up being sentenced to time served and his probation being ended, I'm starting to rethink the possibility that he's gonna have to do any jail time at all anyway. With all the recent shit that's coming out, it's basically insinuating that he's not associated with this organization on these charges, and that he's not the way it's looking, because everybody talks about how high the rate of conviction is for the federal government, and it's very high. It's like 97-98%. It's ridiculously high. But a lot of times it is because when the feds come after you, they already have their case. But what people miss too, sometimes it's a tactic. Sometimes who they choose to charge is a tactic to come after the people that they really want to convict. So you see somebody who is famous, you see somebody who is trying to be successful in their music career, somebody like a Tekashi69. He's very young, he's only 22 years old, right? We don't know. The tactic could be, we want this organization. We may have somebody who we're really targeting, and so their main point for charging him could be, like everybody is saying, to see if he will turn state's evidence, so to speak, cooperate, provide information, so that they can come after the real targets of their investigation and bring this organization down. We don't know what their reason for exactly charging him specifically is. We won't know that until later. But the point is, if the case in fact is as circumstantial and as weak as it seems like, with all of the evidence that's coming out now, what everybody was hanging their hat on was, there's a good chance he might beat this, because it really doesn't seem like they have much specifically on him as far as the racketeering charges, that whole RICO shit. But everybody was in agreement. Well, he's gonna have to sit down because of the probation violation. Well, it's not looking like he's being violated. And what I want to know is, do y'all think if Tekashi is in fact sentenced to time served means you are free to go on the probation charge, right? If that's what he is sentenced to. Because let's be real, and this will be interesting to know too, what he is being held. So, all right, the charges pending against him, the federal charges, the racketeering and all that shit. He's not being held without bail on that, I don't believe. I could be wrong. But I don't believe he's being held without bail on that, because they typically don't deny bail unless the charge is murder. Typically with murder, they're not going to even extend you a bail. And depending on whatever the charge is outside of murder, where they typically will withhold bail altogether or set it so astronomically high that they know you're not going to be able to make bail. But most other charges, they will set a bail. They have to give you the opportunity to mount your defense from the street rather than from behind the wall. But typically, if they don't want you out, or if the crime is that you're being charged of is that bad, they will set a high bail. But I believe what's holding him now, if I'm not mistaken, is the pending violation of the probation. So what I'm wondering is, if he gets sentenced to time served and his probation is then terminated as completed, because time served means, okay, it's completed, that's it. Will he then be able to bail out? Whole different situation if he does. If he ends up getting sentenced to time served, his case looks a lot better. Because with that out of the way, this other case against specifically him for what he's being charged for, I think he has a good chance of beating it. So we may see a whole different turnaround in this case. And if he does in fact get sentenced to time served on his probation, And then that was the reason why he was being held and unable to bail out to now, because he has the resources to bail out. It's just that he was being held. And of course, too, they were arguing for his safety, but you can't really argue that because if it's a person's right to post bail, if it's a person's right to post bail and mount their defense, in in their trial, their upcoming trial, well, now the trial date is set. If the probation, if that hurdle is no longer there because he's sentenced to time served, I don't see them really being able to hold him. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from there. But let me know what y'all think. This case looks totally different come September. If he no longer has that probation violation looming over him, because that's out of the way, if he in fact does get sentenced to time served on that, and then the case against him with all this evidence, these new developments that keep coming out, it seems like every week there's a new development. It seems like he has, before it was like, oh yeah, he's finished. Back when it wasn't exactly clear on what he was being charged with, him specifically. And he's really just being charged with the association, being in concert with a criminal organization. And the racketeering charges come from, the belief that money that he is making is going toward funding this criminal organization. But if his attorneys are able to prove that he was being extorted, or, there is no affiliation, and he just became associated with them just as them being his managers more recently, when they've been following this organization purportedly since 2013, and he's only been linked with them since 2017, the case looks a whole lot different. So I don't know, we're gonna see. It's shaping up to look a little bit different, and it's definitely not what it is for AR-AB and that whole shit going on with them over in Philly. Those charges, that's a whole different thing. They pretty much finished. This Tekashi69 shit is looking a little bit surmountable now. It's looking like he's got a chance to beat it with all of these new developments that are coming out. So yeah, let me know what y'all think about that, man. I don't pretend to know everything. I just know what I know. Like, comment, and subscribe. I got some battle rap reviews coming up. Some more shit I want to bring y'all before the month and the year is out. Again, if you are just passing through, I invite you to stay a while, so please comment on the content so we can go back and forth, talk some shit, like the videos, subscribe so that you can get notifications on all future content, so I can continue to grow this community, to continue to bring y'all content, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace and love.